So I'm using Google Docs to create my group works in my courses. I can do this in my virtual courses, my synchronous courses. I can even do this in my asynchronous courses that I want to use. And I want to just show you how I'm using them. You don't have to use them, but it's a kind of a nice feature to go through. So the first thing is that I've actually created in my assignments in Canvas, and you can use, if you're not using Canvas and using some other learning management system, whatever one you're using, I have these group works. So I've created group works for each one of my chapters, or actually several of different sections. And here is my group work. This one, I actually have a basic Google Doc that I want people to use to go ahead and copy. So I'm going to go in and bring this up, and I will then copy this. So the first thing I'm going to do once I bring this up is I'm going to go through and I'm going to say I want to make a copy of it. I would then copy this to wherever my stuff is on my Google Drive. So you go to your Google Drive, save this to wherever you want to, and then call it whatever you want. I'm going to call it and I'm going to change my folder a little bit just because I want this to go somewhere. So you're just going to save this on your drive, wherever you want to save it on your drive. And I'm going to name it just whatever name you want it. I called it just Group Work Chapter 1. I'm going to say OK. What I like about using the Google Docs is that my students can actually now come in when I create one for them, is they can actually go and start writing their answers to the questions right here in the Google Doc. I can then look to see how they're doing because I can watch their Google Doc because it's on my Google Drive, and I can go into each one of the different groups and pay attention to what's happening. So I could go ahead and do this. I'm going to delete this header here. That was just for me to tell people to copy their own stuff under their own drive. And then I'm now going to go ahead and save this. I'm going to make another copy. And I have different breakout groups I'm using because I'm using Zoom. And I'm going to call this group work chapter 1. I like to organize myself, so this is why I call them this way. You can call them anything you want. I'm calling it breakout room 1. And then I'm going to go ahead and save it as that. It's now going to create a new file for that. And then I can go copy this one for each one of my students. What I want to first do is I want to change the sharing. So I could make my students use their Google Drive account with the college, but I don't want to because some of them may forget to sign in with it and they can't access it. So I'm going to actually change this. I click on the Coconino Community College. I'm going to click on anyone with a link. So I'm going to change it to anyone with a link. Right now, anyone with a link can view it, but I want them to actually be able to type in it. So I'm actually going to say they can be an editor. So that's the other thing I'm going to do is change it to that. So change it to anyone with a link. So by just clicking on where it said Coconino Community College or whatever yours happens to say, and then change it to being an editor so they can actually type into it. I can now go copy again, make a copy of this. I'm going to rename it, but this would not be breakout group 1. This would now be breakout group 2. And I'd make one of these for every single one of mine. But before I say okay, I'm going to say share with the same people. And that way I don't have to go in and change my sharing to anyone with a link can use it, and I don't have to share it to that it can all be editors. It will save that each time for me. So I can go ahead and say okay. And then I then can look at the sharing. If you want to just look at it real fast, you can see it actually now says anyone with the internet with the link can edit. And that's what I want. So I would actually now create a different one for every single one of the groups I'm using. In my course, I happen to have, going back to my course here, I happen to have 6 groups because I have about 24, 25 students. I like 3 to 4 people per group. If I had more people in my classes, I'd add more breakout groups and just keep adding those groups. Then what I do here is I go back to the one that was my chapter 1, group work chapter 1, breakout room 1. I come over here to share. and I say I want to copy the link. I then come back to my LMS. I'm going to edit this group work. I'm going to put after Google Doc for breakout group 1, I'm going to make this paste in that link I just copied. If you hit enter, it'll automatically make that link live. And then I'm going to go do the exact same thing with the second group I created. So I'm going to go over here, go to share, say I would like to copy the link, come back over here, paste that one in, hit enter, and then I can delete this last line that I don't want, but I'm not going to do it this time, but I can delete that. And I could do that for every single one of my groups. I give each of my students their own Google Doc to go into. And what's nice about that is then that means that each Google Doc is only for those students that are in that group. They can go in, they can edit it, they can be typing it. I can watch what they're typing, see if they're getting the right answers here, and watch what's going on in real time. So I can go and say, you might want to look at this, or I see you're stuck here. Do you need some help? And I can go into the breakout groups and help each student on those. So I end up usually having each one of my breakout groups open. And I then go to around, every time I go into that group, I go to their breakout group Google Doc and I see what they're doing. And that's all I do. And then I just save this. I've also, by the way, created groups, and I'll show you those in my people. So in people, I've actually created people. In people, I've actually created a different chapter, a different group for each one of my group assignments that I'm going to use in my class throughout the whole semester. Each one of these has the breakout group 1, and then when I have them, the students that are in there, I just post, when I created my groups in Zoom, I then can move the students into whichever group they're in. That way they get the credit for the one they're working on. So I can, once I have students' names in here, I can pull those names into each one of the groups they're in by just looking at the breakout groups in Zoom and putting them here. And now what I have is in each one of my assignments, if I went back into this chapter 1, when I look at this and I edit this, I can see I've made it into a group assignment and I've used the group chapter 1 group set. So that way this one's assigned to that group. And then that way I know who's in which group. And I've also limited it to doc, docx, or PDF versions. And I do show my students in Google Doc that they come over here to file, and they come down here and they say they want to download it as a doc or as a PDF. And that way one of the people in the group can upload it into the assignment. And that's all I do for my group works. And then I have my students working on those through every single class, and they then can play around with this. And I do this for every single one of my group assignments. I have to go through and create this every semester and create these ongoing. But as you can see, I have them already here ready to go. And then all I gotta do is just copy those Google Docs links each time.